Welcome, humans and gentle humans, to San Francisco's third ever Cliterary Salon! It says pause for wild applause on my script. Does that feel wild? Can we make a wild? Yeah! Thank you. My shades are just slipping down my face as I do this. And so without any further ado, let me introduce the very first one. Lauren Parker. Humans and gentle humans, please take your seats and fasten your seatbelts. Before Lauren's piece, I'd like to give you some brief safety instructions about our next reader. 1. You don't own Lauren. 2. She's not just one of your many toys. 3. You don't own her. 4. Don't tell her she can't go with other boys or other persons of any gender. 5. Federal regulations prohibit tampering with or harshing Lauren's buzz in any way. Humans and gentle humans, as your flight attendant, I don't want to scare you, but the last guy who tried it was found 9 months later on a deserted island with only a VCR and 6 tapes of classic women's wrestling matches to keep him sane, so tread lightly. And now that you're prepared, though nothing could ever truly prepare you, I give you Lauren Parker!
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Everybody enjoying the heat? Yeah, developing swamp tits up here. And that's about the high point, because I'm going to bring this all the way down. Can everybody hear me? Meg, do you want to yell at me again?
No, you're good.
All right. So this piece is called Cry Wolf. The old woman saw them along the tree line, tails sweeping through the brush, the coals of their eyes clouded by the spring fog. She lived alone, outside of town. It made sense she would see them first. When she was eaten, no one made a fuss. They would howl at night, creeping past windows, rubbing up against doors. What's going to be done about this? The baker's wife asked. About what? Her husband loaded his truck with loaves, her voice background noise, musing that he often skipped. The wolves, they're a problem. That old woman already disappeared. Oh, she was old. She probably wandered off and got lost. She was eaten. We can't prove that. You're overreacting. Now help me finish loading up this truck. Business wasn't good. Another baker had come to town and prices had to be slashed. The wallpaper was falling down and they hadn't the money to plant flowers in the garden this year. The baker's wife didn't argue. Things were hard enough. But the women of town talked amongst themselves, the way women do. They started staying in at night. They set a curfew for visits so everyone would get home before sunset. They got used to it. I get to bed so early now, the midwife said. She urged her friends to do the same. The men rather appreciated this. We want you to feel safe. So if you feel that you should stay in, then do, the mayor said to the crowd. The speech was given after sundown. The women listened to it by pressing their ears to the windows. The baker's wife went missing 6 months after the old woman, 3 weeks after the young girl who slept in the doorways of the church disappeared. Giving up the night had not been enough. The wolves had started coming out in the daytime. The men saw them now, but didn't think there were that many of them. It's normal to have this sort of problem. They live here, the same as us, the mayor said. The midwife's right arm was scarred from a mauling. It made it hard to leave her house. She asked her clients to come to her. Some did. Some stayed home and took their chances. You know, you have to face your fear. You can't let it eat you, the pastor's wife said. She'd been very busy, helping. Perhaps you smelled like blood, and they were confused. If anything, they protect the town from raiders. It really can't be that big a problem. Some of those even look like wolf bites, the doctor said. Was it maybe an ordinary dog, and you were too ashamed to admit it? The police chief got a wolf. He roamed through the town, the monster at his heels. The midwife forgot where the man ended and the wolf began. Remember when the wolves were something that we made up? The bar owner said. She limped from a bite that hadn't healed correctly. You can't blame all wolves for this, a patron insisted. The world is dangerous. What sort of coddled life are you proposing? His speech was slurred, but others in the bar mumbled in agreement. The bar owner was attacked in the town square the next night by the policeman's wolf. A terrible accident, the mayor insisted. We're putting him on administrative duty, and we'll give the incident a thorough investigation. Signs were posted on trees, gates, and doors suggesting that women travel in groups and avoid making themselves easy targets for bad wolves. The men sat on their porches, watching the gaggles of women hurry home and chuckled. Women are such nervous creatures, the pastor observed. His wife nodded and topped off his scotch. Poor things clearly don't believe their men will protect them. Frankly, I'm offended. Nothing has happened to my wife, and if she carried on like this, I'd think she didn't trust me. The pastor's wife hadn't left her house at night in months. She pulled her sleeve down over the curved breaks in the skin, 2 incisors and 4 teeth between. The honest women aren't disappearing. Why are these women out and about if they're not to misbehave or rebel against nature? Don't they understand wolves are dangerous? They keep us in check so we don't run wild. The pastor had had several scotches now, and the mayor clinked his glass. No one asked the baker what he thought. He was loading the bread truck by himself now. The mayor and the pastor each got their own wolves as well, letting them into the public buildings and the church. Not all wolves were bad. The pastor railed against the baiting of the wolf. It's useless to resist wolves, you see. They're serving their true purpose. Don't make life harder for them. Stay in at night. Wear clothes that cover your ankles, and don't cook too much meat. Take care of yourself, and this noble creature will take care of you, he said, spittle flying and landing on the wood of the podium. The best protection against wolves is a wolf of your own. The congregation was mostly men now. They would go home and tell their wives what they needed to know. The pastor's wife was eating on a Monday. After the sermon, the Sunday lunch, and cleaning the house. The mopped floor dried without even her footprints on it. She faded into the walls. How could this happen? The men were scandalized. There weren't any women left to be scandalized. Where did this wellspring of violence come from? The pastor couldn't remember. He wept to the mayor. The mayor called for the wolves to be rounded up and shot. But no one could find them. They were still there, of course. They just couldn't see them. They're good dogs licking their chops. All they saw when they looked through town was each other. Thank you.
I'd like to introduce our next reader, Meg Elison. Yes, but there will be further opportunities to make noise for Meg, don't worry. Meg Elison is older than sin, and her heart can grow no darker. She wants to basically do it with the abyss. Every midwinter, an ancient evil with flesh of oak and eyes of undead suns pleads with her to bestride the world like a colossus, meting out pleasure and pain in defiance of desert as a fundamental refutation of God. Each year she's like, pass. And yet, the day of her acceptance draws near, and there will be a wailing and a gnashing of teeth, like the opening bars of a really serious death metal track. And humans, and gentle humans, yesterday was her birthday. So, tremble in fear as you pay your loudest homage to your dark birthday queen, Elison the Great and Terrible. Without any further ado, I give you Meg!
Fear not, gentle humans. This looks like a fucking novel, but I swear to God, it's just printed in gigantic font so that I can read it. This story was published in Fantasy and Science Fiction magazine last year, the November-December issue, with the last story from the late, great Kate Wilhelm. I feel very pleased to have been able to share TOC with her. And it's called Big Girl. You ready? Alright. The girl woke up with a sore neck and 3 seagulls perched on her eyelashes. As her eyes fluttered open, the startled gulls flapped away. They squawked in alarm, but continued their way in the gray pre-dawn light. She shook her head a little, still not fully awake. She blinked a few times. The men on a fishing boat saw a chunk of yellow sleep crust fall from her eye and splash into the water beside them, the size of a bike tire. As she stepped into the water, the boat rocked as if it were passing in the wake of a much larger ship. She blundered forward, skipping and falling to her knees. The impact registered as a 3.1 on a nearby seismograph, and the wave pushed the boat out to the end of its anchor chain. Her dark hair hung over her face, but when she began to wail her disorientation, it blew out in front of her mouth, like black banners caught in the wind. The fishermen pulled up their anchor in a panic. The girl stood up to her full height, towering over the Richmond Bridge. She seemed to realize that she had nothing on. and covered herself with her arms. She was still standing there with her arms crossed tight over her breasts when the first helicopters arrived. sfgate.com. Reports are coming in that a huge inflatable sex doll has been spotted floating near the Richmond Bridge. Please tweet sightings or pics to @sfgates. San Francisco Chronicle. Early reports of an inflatable woman or large art installation near the Richmond Bridge this morning have been confirmed by independent footage acquired by the Chronicle today. The drone video shows that the object is animated, some speculate by radio control. The object looks like a human female and is approximately 320 feet tall. The figure is nude and has no obvious branding or other marks to identify it. Video and still photos indicate that the object is anchored or perhaps limited to the area immediately surrounding Red Rock Island. There are reports from boats in the area that the figure is broadcasting sound, though it is unknown whether it is issuing music or recorded statements. So far, no artist or corporation has claimed ownership or responsibility for the appearance of the ambiguous symbol. This may be due to the controversial nudity of the subject, which appears very lifelike and is fully anatomically correct. More on this story as it develops. @KindnessKills with a Z. I saw the hashtag babe this morning. There's no way it's inflatable, it's too lifelike. @FreeLibreSalad. Hey, @USCG is pulling up to the babe right now. Image. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel pulls in front of a light brown calf, kneecap visible above the ship's head. @USCG. All vessels and individuals steer clear of the hashtag babe phenomenon until further notice. We are assessing the safety of the situation. @SFExaminer. The hashtag babe is a real girl. Sources have identified Bianca Martinez of East Oakland, age 16, in a lake. It took a couple of hours to corroborate the Examiner's scoop. No one believed that the girl was human, so they assumed the headline was a hoax or a hack. By the time the truth hit the news, thousands of pictures had been taken of the girl huddled beside a Coast Guard boat, goosebumps all over her blue-brown skin as large as Canada geese. East Bay Express, title, A Giant Among Men. In the first few days after the babe, Bianca Martinez, a 15-year-old Oakland girl, appeared in the water, misinformation ruled. Between reports that she was an inflatable art project, a publicity stunt, a pre-Burning Man exhibition of an animatronic sculpture, the truth seemed elusive. Yet as Joel Rabinowitz of the SF Examiner first reported, and the Coast Guard later confirmed, Ms. Martinez is a human female. More than that, she's a minor. Once positive identification was made, and her DNA was matched with that of her parents, publishing or selling photos of the nude colossus became illegal. Photos have been surrendered to and seized by local police and the FBI, but the internet is keeping images alive in the echo of the fappening back in 2014. Far from being leaked or hacked, most of these photos were taken by legitimate journalists and printed in nationally circulated newspapers, on TV, and on Twitter. Getting this unexpected tidal wave of child pornography under control is now as difficult as housing or feeding the babe herself. Alameda County Child Welfare has stepped in, attempting to help Martinez's parents provide for their child's gigantic needs. The struggle to clothe her has attracted donations of sailcloth and large nautical tarps. But the girl still seems half-clothed and constantly shivering. Food banks claimed record donations as people banded together to feed Martinez, but county officials struggle to find her somewhere to eat where people cannot crowd around to watch. The solution thus far has involved Martinez wading out into the bay to eat out of her hands, in relative privacy. Experts have guessed Martinez's height at somewhere around 350 feet and her weight at almost 100 tons. Her passage across the bay has disrupted ferry and fishing boat traffic, and the Coast Guard has issued a ban on all sailboats and small craft for the time being. Martinez was seen only 2 nights ago, batting dozens of drones out of the air around her, swooping them into the sea to avoid their lights and cameras. In the carefully cropped photo that ran above the fold, pixelated starfish dotted her pubic hair like deliberate decoration. The East Bay Express attempted to find out where the babe sleeps, but our search came up empty. From BuzzFeed. Is San Francisco's giant mystery girl human? Human rights organizations around the world are struggling with this question now as government officials on all sides hesitate to offer the girl, Bianca Martinez, any kind of aid. She's just so damn big, Oakland Mayor Lainey Schiff remarked. It's difficult to think of her as a citizen of Oakland when Oakland can't begin to meet her needs. And if she's taken up temporary indigent residence on various beaches and islands, I'm not sure it's strictly Oakland's issue. A representative from the Department of Human Services said the organization was unclear on their responsibilities in this case. She is 15, and if she was a completely normal-sized girl a week ago, but tomorrow, who knows? We're waiting on a decision to find out how we should deal with this. Samuel Sapporo, one of Martinez's former teachers at Oakland High, offered up another point of view, saying, imagine this was your kid. She's terrified and exposed, and there's nowhere safe for her to go. She's homeless and naked and practically starving, and we're going to argue whether she's a person anymore? Oakland police are concerned about Martinez's superhuman strength and ability. One officer, who asked not to be named, asked, what if she decides to walk home one day? She could flatten Chinatown, maybe take out the MacArthur Maze while she's at it. She could destroy BART tracks, and we couldn't do anything to stop her. That's not a person. That's a threat. Martinez's parents are reported to have limited English proficiency and have thus far refused to speak with the press. The Coast Guard arranged for them to visit their daughter on a boat last Monday, but the boat reportedly never left the dock. Martinez's father is a plumber and her mother is a homemaker. The family belongs to Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church, and they have not been spotted there in recent weeks. Representatives of the Oakland Diocese declined to comment on Bianca Martinez's humanity. Redacted.net excerpt. Jiggly Teen Giant. Why am I being harassed by the FBI and other law enforcement for posting pictures of this hot-ass teen giant? She's a big girl. She looks grown up to me. For fuck's sake, she could crush my skull with her thumb. Can she really be a victim? Talk about unrapeable. She could flick me to Oregon if I climbed that mountain of round ass. Redacted.com excerpt. Nobody inched along the giant's neck, taking even little steps. Her breathing was like a hot wind that caressed him all over, whistling around his erection like a wind through the trees. There, she rumbled in her huge, deep voice. Nobody, said nobody, trembling. Oh, I don't think so. You can't fool Mommy like that. The giant pinched nobody around the thigh and lifted him high into the air. He screamed in ecstasy and terror. She dropped him into her massive maw and swallowed him whole. He was engulfed in the warm, wet folds of her enormous throat. Muscles worked all around him, forcing him downward, squeezing him tight. He slipped into the total darkness of the giant's stomach, the acidic heat suffusing him with deadly desire. Nobody felt along the stomach lining until he found a comfortable, groovy place to grind his aching member against her pulsing insides. The giant gurgled happily in her sleep. At WTF Facts. Bianca Martinez, the giantess of the SF Bay, has a heart as big and as heavy as a Volkswagen Beetle. At Barely Legal 199. Countdown to Bianca Martinez's 18th birthday. And a link. New York Times. The girl who was Rendell. I first met Bianca Martinez sitting at the beach in Marin County. She had been shot several times by park rangers after an altercation involving the now deceased photographer Mark Honhofer. Ms. Martinez, in her attempt to stop him from photographing her genitals close up as she slept, pulled Honhofer's left arm off his body. He died immediately from the loss of blood. Bianca sat cross-legged on the pebbles of the beach, squeezing bullets out of her skin and her forearm like a patch of blackheads. She had to whisper to me, anything else was overwhelming. There was no hope of privacy. I asked her if she was under arrest. She shrugged her massive shoulders, a hypnotic, rippling, rising and falling wall of flesh. They say I am, but they can't cuff me or put me in jail, so I guess I'm in trouble. At this, she made air quotes with 2 fingers on each hand, each the size of a full-grown dolphin. She glanced over at the park ranger's truck, each of her brown eyes as big as a driver's side window. I guess they could chain me to something. Maybe. In the days that followed, she was approached by several different branches of law enforcement, as well as DHS. The helplessness they shared was palpable as they failed to come to a decision on how to govern the giant girl's behavior. In the end, they decided that she had killed the photographer in self-defense and gave up, driving their squad cars and sports utility vehicles off the beach. The 2 of us were left with the gulls and the constant sound of drones coming near enough to film her, but trying to stay out of reach. I asked her what she missed. With her massive face laid on the warm rocks beside me, she whispered things that any teenage girl might name. My friends, she said, as an elephantine tear slid down her face to cool on the rocks. My school, my clothes. I miss wearing clothes so much, I'm cold all the time. Nobody's offered me anything that's even close to big enough, I just hold it against me. I dream all the time that I'm back in my bed, but then I wake up, and it's raining. Yesterday, Carl the Fog, the popular personification of the ever-present San Francisco fog, tweeted at Bianca that he would like to marry her. The last time I saw her, she stood up on that beach made from the Marin headlands, a wooded area that's sparsely populated by some of the richest people in the state. Local papers report that homeowners there fear her presence and the possible damage she might do to their property. As she reared up to her full, terrible height, the fog wrapped itself around her like the soft gray fur of an Arctic fox. Carl might be the only match for this monster of a girl. At Butt Stuffed Pizza. I went to school with Bianca since we were 8. I feel so bad for her. At Candle in the Wind. This has gone on long enough. Someone needs to help her. Hashtag babe. At Giants Fan 87. We finally have a real SF Giant. Too bad she's got cramps and she can't play. At BBC Breaking. Bianca Martinez, the Giant of San Francisco Bay, found unresponsive on the beach. Link. At Oaktown Rats. Beached whale. Pic redacted. San Francisco Chronicle. Bianca Martinez, the Bay Area's mysterious giant girl, was found unresponsive, lying on the beach near Point Richmond yesterday evening. Footage from the KROZ newscopter showed that her abdomen is slightly distended and she is bleeding from her vaginal area. Attempts to rouse her by sound or pressure have failed. Her parents were on the scene with their priest, who reportedly gave the girl the last rites sometime after sundown. EMTs on the scene could discern Martinez's pulse and confirm that she was still alive, but could not determine the cause of her unconsciousness. Attempts to cover Martinez's body or move it back from the encroaching surf have failed. Snapchat story. She's so heavy. SF. An EMT in whites takes Martinez's pulse by leaning against her neck, forearms pressed to the skin, head turned away from the massive body as he tries to count. The vibrations of her pulse bob his head, slowly, slightly. A crowd of girls in UC Berkeley gear pose a few feet from the body, smiling until one of them realizes her shoe is sinking into the bloody sand. Martinez slowly lifts one hand, its shadow passing over the morning beach walkers and their dogs. All heads turn. A woman screams and her small dog barks importantly, punctuating the sound. Martinez's hand drops into the surf and the giant gets up. She drags her knees through the wet sand, leaving impressions large enough to drive a Jeep into. Her right hand leaves a perfect print as she pushes up off the beach. Caked sand falls from her breasts and belly as she stands to her full height. Chunks come raining down, smashing apart on the ground when they hit. Cameras trained on her face pick up only a black shape against the morning light. The giant walks into the sea, washing away blood and sand, saying nothing. sfgiantwatch.com. It's been 413 days since we had a sighting of Bianca the Giant. Rumors that she's fled to a Farallon Islands remain unsubstantiated. The islands are out of drone range and no ship has sighted her or brought back pictures. Aircraft have not been able to find her. Is it possible that she's dead? Did she just walk into the sea? We need answers. That giant belongs to all of us. She's a symbol of the fantastic, the awesome, the unknowable reach of human potential. Every time a lighthouse on the bay makes its circle, I hope she knows it's searching for her. California State Department of Justice featured missing children. Bianca Rosalba Martinez. Report type, runaway juvenile. Sex, female. Race, Hispanic. Hair brown, eyes brown. Height, 370 feet. Weight, 200,000 pounds. Date of birth, 8/16/2001. Clothing, none. Last seen, April 28, 2015. Dental x-rays available? No. Bianca Martinez was last seen on the beach near the Sutro Baths. Bianca didn't know the name of the island she was on, she just knew she had it to herself. There were caves and rock formations on one side, and flat beach on the other. She caught dolphins that wriggled helplessly between her fingers and cried when she dashed their heads against the rocks to kill them. She didn't know how to light a fire. In time, she learned to deal with their raw flesh in her mouth. She cracked whole coconuts between her teeth and cherished the warm drips of milk and the sweet flesh. She tried not to eat them all, but could not help herself. She caught tangles of kelp and ate it too, hoping it was like a vegetable. It was salty and she hated it. She grew thin. She watched the sun come up alone and go down alone, occasionally with the company of the moon. She slept during the day, her broad brown back soaking up the sun. She walked the island at night, building sandcastles that were 2 stories tall. She tried to befriend seabirds, offering them shreds of fish and letting them off on her hands. They shat on her and kept to themselves. She thought she would die of loneliness, but every time she lay down, she would wake as soon as she got cold. She jumped at the sound of airplanes. It had been almost 2 years before she realized something was wrong. The seagulls in her palm were getting larger. The fish were too big to eat. She left parts strewn in the sand and watched the crabs and flies swim over them. She tried to measure herself against the rocks, gauging whether she could see over the top from one day to the next. The change in hope had happened overnight the first time. This time, it crept into her body like a thief. She doubted it was real. She had wished for it too many times. But the day came when she was only shorter than the rocks that she had seen over a month before. It took days for her to gather the courage to take to the water again. She had swum out when she was too big for anything to stop her, too huge to care about any obstacle. This time, she knew that there were things in the sea bigger than her. She acclimated herself to daylight and chose a day with a clear sky. It took half the day to swim back. The pull of the tide yanked her farther and farther south. She came ashore in Monterey Bay, exhausted and with seawater in her lungs. Babe is back! Santa Cruz police positively identified Bianca Martinez yesterday after her spectacular reemergence from hiding. The girl, formerly known as the Babe, has shrunk considerably, coming in at only 100 feet tall. Local government officials scrambled to help her, noting that she's lost a considerable amount of weight and her massive ribs and hip bones are very prominent in her frame. The Walnut Avenue Family and Women's Shelter has offered to assist Ms. Martinez, securing transitional housing and food donations for her. At her reduced size, they were also able to offer her something resembling clothing, as she is said to be resting comfortably in a large structure somewhere in Santa Cruz County. Experts are baffled as to why the Babe suddenly lost so much of her famous mass. Police reports say that the girl herself could offer no explanation. More on this story as it develops. Hanger inventory. 2 pallets dry goods donated by grocery outlet, contents unknown. 16 king sheet sets salvaged from the Hotel Durant's fire sale. 2,000 gallons water donated by Home Depot. 2 pitchforks donated by Home Depot. 35 books large print donated by the Santa Cruz Public Library. 1 case Hershey bars donated by Hershey. 1 iPad donated by Apple. Instagram account belonging to @StreetProphetess, 2,875 likes. Bianca Martinez kneels between 2 A-frame ladders as seen from the back. 2 women wielding pitchforks labor at detangling her hair, which hangs to her waist. Caption: Every girl deserves to feel pretty. Hashtag just girly things. Hashtag babe. Hashtag brown-eyed girl. KPIX TV News. Footage of Bianca Martinez emerging from her hangar rolls as a reporter speaks. It's coming out day here in San Francisco as Bianca Martinez, the so-called Babe, has agreed for the first time to speak on camera. We're all here watching with bated breath as she approaches. As you can see, Martinez is much smaller than she used to be and is now able to wear clothes. It looks as though she's approaching the microphones now. Let's see what she has to say. The reporter turns her back as the camera switches to a view of Bianca, microphones tiny in front of her chin. She opens her mouth, but no sound is heard. A few moments of this. Her face grows confused. The reporter faces the camera again. It looks like we've had a slight technical difficulty here. Let's take a moment to review the history of the Babe phenomenon while the crew works it out. Footage rolls from Bianca's debut, blurs and black bars obscuring her nudity. The prepared clips end, but the audio has not improved. Bianca turns her back and crouches to re-enter the hangar. No further word is issued. @Dev4, man, now hashtag Babe wears clothes. Who authorized this? @VerySlimitude. Did anyone else notice that Bianca isn't as hot as she used to be? @FreeLizards. I wonder if the hashtag Babe is going to be normal sized again. Can she just go back home? Is that allowed? Bianca noticed her sheets were bigger and bigger on her every day. She woke up disoriented, unable to balance. Her hair was far too long, tickling the backs of her thighs. When she was only 20 feet tall, she walked home. Cameras and drones followed, but not as many as before. She hardly noticed. SF Examiner. Babe has babe. Bianca Martinez, the girl formerly known as the Babe, gave birth to her first and only child today at Kaiser Medical Center in Oakland. At 15 feet 3 inches, Martinez is the tallest woman ever to have given birth. Her daughter, Inez, was born weighing 8 pounds exactly and is only 18 inches long. The child's father, Ricky Arden, the 32-year-old man from Oakland, laughed and joked with reporters this morning when asked about the birth. She just slid out, Arden exclaimed, offering a gesture to illustrate. She was so little and Bianca so big. Must be the easiest baby ever born. Ms. Martinez was unavailable for comment. However, a source from the hospital informed us that Martinez left the hospital 2 full feet shorter than she was at intake. When Ricky left, Bianca was just over 6.5 feet tall. Inez was 4 years old, perfectly normal and well-adjusted in every way. She had not known her father well and did not miss him for long. It was Inez who pointed out to Bianca how short she was getting. Bianca's parents never liked to remark on her size. They had accepted her the day she was able to fit into their house again, but they never talked about the intervening years. There was no denying when Bianca's 10-year-old daughter was taller than she was. The mark on the wall said 4'11", but Bianca disliked numbers. The college fund had come through anonymous donors years before, intended for Bianca herself. She'd never gotten around to using it, but the people at the bank said yes, she could use it for her daughter too. They had to put a box of computer paper on the floor to help her climb up to the upholstered chair to sign her name. The counselor at CSU Hayward was very sensitive to people with disabilities and went out of her way to make Ms. Martinez feel welcome. She had never registered a student whose parent was a little person, and the double minority status made her giddy as she entered Inez's information into the computer. When Bianca got back to her car after dropping Inez off in her first dorm room, she found that the pedal extender was too short to reach the gas. She had to pull it and adjust the length to drive herself home, sitting up in her booster seat and peering over the dash. Inez was the last person to see her mother. She came home with a bursting laundry bag and found Bianca pacing back and forth across the wide pages of her scrapbook. It lay open to the images she had printed off the internet, her own towering silhouette beside the Bay Bridge. Her feet made no impression as she walked across the heavy paper, no taller than a dragonfly. Inez reached out her hand, unsure if she could touch her mother without hurting her. "I'm in here somewhere," Bianca said. The next day, try as she might, Inez could not find her mother at all. Thank you.
I'm really excited to bring our next reader to the stage. It's Tara Marsden. Make some noise. It's her very first time reading with us. We're really excited that she's come out. We're really excited to have her on the list, and we hope that you'll make it a great time for her too. As great a time as she's going to make for all of you. Tara Marsden is the ancient empress of the long-hidden and long-suffering mermaid queendom of the Pacific Abyss, a land, technically not a land, where everyone has powerful magic and dresses like extras in an Evanescence music video. Long have the merfolkets ignored our landish civilization and its quaint and folksy ways because, in the words of their Secretary of State, land is for losers. But eventually our poisoning of the ocean grew too serious, and the termagant Tara the Terrible, for that is her title, rose to the surface to avenge the ocean and its many beasties. Fortunately, before she could drown us all in a terrible flood, she happened to espy a Rihanna concert. And in Rihanna's glorious name, Tara has determined to spare the land and its people temporarily. So, if you hear that Rihanna is sick, buy a snorkel or something. And without any further ado, I give you Tara!
Thank you. All right. I just want to say before I get, well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you. Everyone before, first of all, Meg was amazing and Lauren was amazing, so I'll also give it up to them. Second, okay. So I was gonna read this other story that was really sad, and it was about getting dumped on election night, and I was gonna bring you all real down. And I decided I didn't want to do that. So I wrote a story today. Haven't read it all the way through in one go yet, so join me for that experience. So this is called Brain in a Bucket. So this, she thought, was freedom. Jessica would have sighed with relief, but she could no longer sigh. Neither could she stretch out her arms and yawn or scratch her head. She couldn't take a sip of water or masturbate. Her old morning routine was beyond her reach now. You see, Jessica no longer had a body. She had no body, but she still existed in this physical plane, to an extent. Jessica was now only a brain in a bucket. Well, bucket is not entirely accurate. She was, in fact, in some sort of sterile stainless steel container hooked up by a tangle of wires to a vast hard drive the size of a city block. Or so she'd been told before the procedure. She couldn't, of course, see or feel any of that now. She couldn't see or feel anything. She could only do the one thing she had always wanted more time to do. She could only think. When she was approached as a candidate for full-body amputation, Jessica thought it was a joke. She'd quipped many times on Twitter about wanting to escape her corporeal form, and she figured the targeted ads she was seeing, featuring a dancing gif of a brain cartwheeling across the Milky Way, leaving in its wake a dilapidated, boneless husk that was supposed to be a body, like a discarded Halloween costume, was some kind of Dadaist meme she was too old to really get, or maybe an ironic advertisement for like a mindfulness retreat or something. When she clicked on the image, nothing happened. There was no hyperlink to anywhere as far as she could tell. But the next morning, she got an email from the cartwheeling brain. She didn't remember entering her email address anywhere. It was not unlike the emails she often received from the local marketing neuro research company, where she occasionally did consumer studies for extra pocket change. She was asked to take a survey determining her eligibility. Eligibility for what exactly? She wasn't sure. But she was bored and curious and a little sad, so she thought, fuck it, why not? First question. She was asked to identify her gender on a sliding spectrum between Leonardo DiCaprio and Rihanna, with an alien right at the center. She paused for a moment, looking down at her slight frame, shrouded in an old oil-stained white t-shirt. She shrugged and chose the alien. She was asked to rate her enjoyment of sex on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being 100% disinterested, 10 being insatiable sex addiction, 5 being with a shrug emoji. She remembered when she still fucked cis dudes, the way they'd plunge in and out of her quick and sloppy, how their faces looked rocking back and forth above hers, their gaze aimed somewhere beyond her left ear. How every single one of them seemed to only know 3 positions and would rotate through them in roughly the same order every time. She remembered her brief affair with a sugar daddy who liked to slap her around, but he didn't like to be scratched, and she indifferently obliged. She remembered sleeping with a woman who, mid-coitus with her hand still inside Jessica, paused to tell her that she was thinking about her ex-girlfriend. And wasn't it funny how sometimes in life it feels like you're living the same scene over again, only you've cast a new actress as the love interest? The woman said sleeping with her was like adding a new coat of paint to an old room. And was really confused when Jessica didn't want to continue fucking. Looking at the shrug emoji with a deep feeling of affinity, she chose 5. The survey felt interminable, like the Myers-Briggs, or really more like those MySpace quizzes she used to fill out in high school instead of doing her homework. When she finally finished it, after what felt like an hour, she immediately received another email in her inbox, which announced in flashing letters like a birthday party evite, "You are eligible." There was an address listed and a date, that Friday, and instructions. It said not to wear any hair product or excessive makeup or drink any alcohol the night before. At this point, she still figured it was some kind of marketing research thing, or maybe some other gig, medical tests, nude modeling, whatever. Why not? Obviously, it turned out to be none of those things. When she found out that they were some foreign corporation offering her a chance to live out her wildest dream, eternal life as a mind and only a mind, she still kind of thought it was a joke, but she couldn't agree fast enough. They did tell her what they intended to use her body for, but that they were like collecting young, relatively healthy women's bodies for organ harvesting, or was it surrogacy? Whatever. She wasn't really paying attention. She wanted all her life to escape this stupid meat sack prison. Who cared what they did with it? And now she'd done it. She'd finally done it. She wondered if she was still a she in any discernible way. Before the amputation, she'd never really figured out if her gender lived in her brain or her body or neither. But she realized now it didn't really matter anyway. You don't need pronouns if you can't talk to anyone, and if no one can talk to you. No more pronouns. No more dudes asking her at bars, on the bus, or on the street, at work, "What are you?" or "Where are you from?" or "What languages do you speak?" Or just randomly naming nationalities at her. Mexican, Persian, Cambodian, Vietnamese, Thai, and answering Filipino, to which the reply was always a smug, "I knew it." When obviously they didn't fucking know it. They had just literally guessed wrong a dozen times. No more looking in the mirror and pulling at the fat of her cheeks, pouting her lips, pinching her nose, and wondering if she looked like her dad or her mom, or neither. If her white friend saw a brown person when they looked at her, if her brown friend saw a white person, or it was the other way around, everyone projecting themselves onto her body, a conveniently ambiguous mirror. No more high heels, no more nail clippers, no more haircuts, no more padded bras, no more binders, no more shaving, no more sunburns, no more yeast infections, no more nausea, indigestion, hunger pangs, cramps, tampons, no more sweat, no more dehydration, no more shin splints, no more acne, no more dandruff, no more flu, no more colds, no more sore throats, no more smoker's cough, no more paper cuts, no more hangovers, No more ingrown hairs. No more cavities. No more sciatica. No more Googling, what does a breast lump feel like exactly? Or do other people's ovaries just kind of pinch like all the time? Or is it okay that I've never had a pap smear? Or what are the symptoms of gonorrhea or syphilis or HPV? Or checking WebMD every time she felt a little fatigued and diagnosing herself with 3 kinds of cancer. No more convincing herself to join the Y than never going. No more going for a run twice a year and thinking that really ought to count for something. No more sunbathing. No more soft wind. No more back scratches. No more hot springs. No more rosé or champagne or tequila. No more ice cream. No more taking your bra off after a long day. No more singing in the shower. No more tea in bed, no more coffee on her porch, no more painting her toes to match her mood, no more dancing till last call. No more acid trips, no more getting stoned and eating hot Cheetos and Sour Patch Kids. No more hugging a friend she hasn't seen in a while, no more blushing, no more making out with beautiful strangers. No more glitter, no more perfume, no more strap-ons, no more giving hit, no more getting hit. No more oysters, or baguettes with brie, or fresh strawberries. No more naps. No more spooning, no more laughing so hard your abs burn and tears seep out the sides of your eyes. No more crying, but like in a good way at cathartic movies. No more waking up next to her and rolling over to tuck your face right into her neck. So this, she thought, was freedom.
Folks, we've got a real treat next. Me. Really? Is that what I get? It's fine. Applaud! That charges my batteries. It's like a Wally thing where I have to... Lewis Evans, the clitless clitorado, has Benjamin buttoned in from a terrible future where all humanity is ruled by hyper-intelligent teddy bears and other fuzzy children's toys. His reverse time-traveling superpower is the only hope for our species' survival and eventual freedom, but instead of changing the past to save the future, he's chosen to basically fuck around this entire decade. So without any further ado, I give you me. The Countess of Monte Clitso for all of you. And I do want to warn the audience that some of the piece is written in French, a language I do not speak and cannot pronounce. And I really set myself up for this. I feel exactly like someone who dug a deep pit in his front yard and then got his bicycle and was like, this is gonna be great. And maybe it will, I don't know. America's Funniest Home Videos had many successful seasons. So, strap yourself in, folks. Everything was a hot mess in France again. Napoleon, who had once ruled uncontested like choker necklaces in the 90s, was now out like choker necklaces in the early aughts. But just like choker necklaces, the former emperor was biding his time in a remote Mediterranean island, waiting for his moment to regain the throne. But does this look like a show about some short dude in France who got famous for being good at doing murder? Fuck no. This is a rich French tale of hot, steamy fucking revenge. Our hero is Edmond Dicta, a person presenting as a man and as a sailor. They were working on a boat, which is what sailors do. Things were going pretty well for them. Their captain had recently expired in a tragic pirate-themed sexual roleplay accident. Remember, kids, always remember your safe words when you're walking your own plank. Safe words are there for a reason. But Edmund had been promoted to captain. Plus, they were about to marry their childhood sweetheart, Mercedes, a woman from Catalonia, Spain's premier fiancé-producing province. Unfortunately for our glorious hero and their remarkably jaunty sailor's hat, things were about to get sad. The whole story is long and involved, and as French as a priest and a hunchback having a midnight baguette fight atop a burning cathedral. But basically, 3 shady bitches subtweeted at Edmund so hard that Edmund's ass was thrown in jail. Do not pass go, do not collect 200 francs. Not even the famously unpleasant prison known as the Château d'If. No, Edmond was thrown in that disreputable citadel's dirtier and more disreputable sibling, the shithole de Queef. The shithole was a hideous and unpalatable stone edifice located on a hideous and unpalatable Mediterranean island, which would eventually be torn down and replaced with a hideous and unpalatable golf course, branded after a certain American political figure. But the less said of him, the better. kidding. Cliterary Salon isn't afraid of the president. He's not some sort of dumpster fire Voldemort. Fuck Trump! Ahem. We now return you to your regularly scheduled parody. Our hero, Edmund, was trapped in the most hideous prison in all of the Mediterranean Sea for like many years. Dozens, hundreds, thousands, millions. Okay, 6. 6 years. But 6 years is a really long time to be stuck in a small hole in a rock in the middle of the shitty part of the Mediterranean. Hell, 6 years is a long time to be stuck in Ibiza, widely regarded as the Mediterranean's most popular rock. If you met someone and they said, yeah, I went to Ibiza on vacation and yada yada, I couldn't leave for 6 years, you'd be like, shit. So our hero, Edmund, was losing their fucking mind, TBH. Fortunately, just before they got too absolutely crazy to function, they heard a scraping and a tapping at the wall. Edmund's former life as a slut and/or stud had trained them to never ignore the sounds of tapping at the wall. After all, before the invention of cell phones, that's basically how you get a booty call. 6 years had left Edmund thirstier than they'd ever been in their life, and so when they heard the scraping sound, they immediately began tunneling toward it. Eventually, the hole they made got bigger and bigger, and they were able to put their whole fist into it, and then finally it got bigger than that, and a priest came out. Hello, said the priest, except this shit was France, baby, and so he said, bonjour. This has been your French word of the evening. The rest of this narrative will be rendered in English, even though it is the filthy peasant tongue, a language unfit to lick the boot of its Norman conquerors, a language with no poetry, no soul, no sexy extra vowels, and L's in seductive places. Une langue qui est un morceau de merde. Thank you. The text here says I don't write this stuff, I just read it, but I wrote it. I made me do that. I reached through time and kicked myself in the ass on stage. Back to English. Hello, said the priest. My name is Father Faria, but you can call me Daddy. Edmund was a proud revolutionary and held strong anti-clerical views. However, they were not opposed to eroticizing their own praxis by deconstructing the Catholic patriarchy with their junk. Upon the two lovers' rumpity-pumpity, of the sassiness of their num-nums, of their snoo-snoo, let this narrative tastefully draw the curtain. The only detail I shall divulge is that when you have been relying on the diet of a French revolutionary political prisoner, eating ass is a nutritional necessity as well as a genuine delight. The Papist Papa and Edmund spent many joyous months together. Month is a word that derives from moon, and moon means to expose one's buttocks. And that is exactly what these two souls did. But time passes and daddies start out old already. Father Faria died. With his dying breath, he whispered the secret of a miraculous island with a fabulous treasure to Edmund. You must go to Monte Cristo. Clitso. I made up the word, but I can't pronounce it. Monte Clitso, he whispered, and then expired like a freezer sausage carelessly left upon the countertop. Edmund was like, okay, 1, okay, sure, and 2, fuck being in prison, and so Edmund escaped. It was a daring and elaborate plot involving an eggplant, a scale model of the Palace of Versailles, and a strategically concealed vial of holy water, and if I had the right props, I would show you exactly how it was done. But I don't. C'est la vie. That's French for, this is the V. And we all know Anyway, Edmund just rode on off into the Mediterranean for an unrealistically long time. The sea grew strange in color. Odd mists wreathed the surface of the increasingly slick and tangy waters. Bizarre clouds hung in the sky. And then they reached the Isle of Monte Cristo. It was like no isle Edmund had... We can cheer for it if you'd like. Those of you who are familiar with my oeuvre will not be surprised to learn that it's an enormous clitoris and it talks. It has lines later on. Spoiler alert. It was like no isle Edmund had ever seen, and they were a sailor. Its color was fleshy, its surface smooth, its temperature warm, and its climate moist. Edmund scaled its sides and summited the Titanic nubbin. And then the island spoke. Greetings, human, it rumbled. I am the Isle of Monte Cristo. Yeah, said Edmund, who was quaking in fear, but preferred to address the unknown with a sarcastic and knowing demeanor. What brings you to my squishy shores? I seek the treasure. True treasure is to be found in erotic self-knowledge, rumbled the island. Okay then, said Edmund, I want the fake treasure. Whichever one is the treasure with all the gold. There was a long pause. Fine, said the Isle, and it produced a shitload of huge chests of gold. Don't spend it all in one place. You're not my dad, said Edmund. And then they wept, for their daddy was no more. The island waited quietly and respectfully for a few minutes to give Edmund time to process, and then it spoke again. What are you going to use that money for? Sweet and salty revenge, duh, said Edmund, and they hopped in their rowboat and sped off at the maximum speed of a rowboat filled with many large treasure chests, which is basically the same speed as a geriatric tortoise taking a very leisurely stroll. Seek not revenge, but the orgasm, moaned the clitoris, its voice echoing over the Mediterranean. Edmund kept rolling. By the time they arrived in Paris, Edmund's appearance had been entirely transformed. They were now passing as an extravagant noblewoman, a wearer of enormous and jewel-encrusted dresses, called the Countess of Monte Clitzo. But there is no such place, exclaimed the learned nobles of Paris. Then where did I get my fucking buckets of gold? Asked Edmund, fluttering their fan coquettishly, and then made it rain francs. And the nobles of Paris had nothing to say to this, for in the great rock-paper-scissors game of the late feudal transition to capitalism, money smashes aristocratic title just as brutally as rock does to innocent scissors. Speaking of scissoring. There were 3 shady little shits who had originally subtweeted Edmund into prison, and they would each get what was coming to them. The first one was Fernand Mondodong, a rival for the hand of Edmund's first fiancée Mercedes. Fernand had betrayed Edmund to prevent the marriage, hoping to win Mercedes' affections. Edmund went looking for him. He's probably all married to Mercedes now, living the life of non-monogamously wedded bliss that I had dreamed of. All Netflix and back rubs and orgies, muttered Edmund resentfully as they stalked the streets of Paris in the vast and gleaming outfit of the Countess. But no, that's stupid. Women are people. They are smarter than a duck. They're not like, oh, well, there are 2 suitors and one is missing. Guess the other one wins by default. Edmund discovered that, in fact, Fernand's proposal had been rejected by Mercedes. Fernand took his spurning poorly and menaced Mercedes with an assault both violent and carnal, so she slit his throat and left him to bleed out in the street. Which we can agree was well enough deserved. In fact, in revolutionary France, where the guillotine had replaced soccer as the national sport, this counted as a moderate response. Oh, well, good, said Edmund when they learned this, and then took a quick detour to re-woo Mercedes. She had moved to a small farm in the country. Brace yourself, babe, said Edmund, as they sat before Mercedes in their fanciest Countess bling and blingette. I have a remarkable secret. The mysterious and formidable Countess of Monte Clitzo is, in fact, I know you're my fiancé, Edmund, said Mercedes. That's literally the dress you used to wear for drag nights, only you put diamonds on it. Oh, said Edmund, cool. There was a very long and awkward silence.
How long was it? Yeah.
It was the silence that occurs between 2 people when one of them is expecting to have sex and the other one is not. Finally, Edmund spoke. Want to move back to Paris with me, get vengeance on those responsible for my unjust imprisonment, and have really hot revenge sex on their graves? Edmund, darling, that really sounds like a you project, not an us project. But I was imprisoned in the shithole de Queef for 6 years. Surely I have a right. Of course you have a right, but I've had a lot of personal growth in those 6 years, and one of the things I've learned is not to invest in your partner's projects if they wouldn't be emotionally healthy. Come to me when you've got something genuinely fulfilling to do. Edmund was thrown for a loop by Mercedes' newfound maturity, but in the end they nodded and caught the Countess Mobile back to Paris. Back in Paris, Edmund tracked down the other 2 people who had been responsible for their false imprisonment. And yeah, Edmund got revenge. Real filthy revenge, involving cat burglary, con artistry, highway robbery, robbery in a tunnel, piracy on the high seas, piracy on a moderately sized lake, piracy in an extremely small bathtub, butt stuff, a sugar dish secretly filled with salt, a salt shaker secretly filled with laxatives, and a laxative jar that contained a live viper. It was gross, it was satisfying, and it was occasionally rated NC-17. But at the end of all this revenging and pillaging and burning, and dramatically whipping off their masks to proclaim, aha, it was me, Edmund, the whole time! Edmund found themselves restless. They were not at peace. They were not fulfilled. The words of Mercedes echoed in their head. And so eventually they gave all the piles of gold away to charity, and all the fancy dresses away to a charitable drag organization, and they returned to Mercedes Farm. "Hey lover," said Edmund, "want to row out to a giant clit island with me and have sex there a lot?" "I thought you'd never ask," said Mercedes. They rowed the boat together for long days and nights, and though neither of them were men, both of them found the little man in the boat, which is a slang term for the human clitoris. Finally, they arrived at the mythic island of Monte Clitzo. "I'm back," said Edmund, "and I brought a friend." "I'm glad to see you," replied the giant clit. And they pleasured themselves in each other endlessly, the one titanic clit and the two small humans, each spasming in turn and occasionally in unison. And they never left that magical place, for all human wisdom is contained in these two words: stay and come. I'd like to hand it over to our final reader tonight, Maggie Tokuda-Hall. It's a real pleasure to introduce our final writer to you. Maggie Tokuda-Hall is a 7,000-time shipwreck winner, master luchador, and a vengeful spirit. When she's not howling out doom from atop a craggy peak, rising lonesome from a dark and storm-tossed sea, she finds time to summit the two most highly esteemed and dignified genres of word shit: children's books and porn. Without any further ado, I give you the octopus-loving literary prodigy, Maggie Tokuda-Hall.
Books and porn. That's like a really fun way to introduce me. And recently a way that somebody tried to when I was not there. And the person that they were trying to explain my work to misheard what they were saying and was like, "She writes children or child pornography?" Which is the absolute worst way to hear that. And so I thought, just in case any of you ever need to explain, like, I saw this lady reading and she's so brilliant and her hair was perfect and you should follow all of her work, here's a list of things that she does not write. A loving and sensual biography of Mitch McConnell. Any kind of introduction to any kind of coding. Or fucking child pornography. I'm going to read you guys a story tonight with no child pornography in it at all. It's based on a real thing that happened, and I'm happy to tell you all about it after this reading. And it is called The Roommate. It does not happen to me, to be clear. Before we start. Mary had never been dry humped so much in her whole life. It had only been a week, but her patience was already worn thin. This is what she'd signed up for, after all. But her thighs ached from where Pete rubbed himself against her constantly. Pete was a bottlenose dolphin, a young adult male, and it was her job to teach him how to speak English. "Eh?" Mary said. Pete replied. Mary tried again. "I, oh." Pete resumed humping her thighs. He did that a lot. She tried to take his affections as a compliment, but he was a dolphin, and also, no one else was there. If her relationship with Ben hadn't imploded so spectacularly, Mary might not have taken the job. But it had imploded, and the implosion had indeed been spectacular. And so Mary found herself in need of a new apartment and a new job, since Ben had been her boss, as well as her roommate, as well as her lover. An arrangement that now appeared as myopic as hindsight could possibly allow. So when she found a listing for animal trainer, no experience necessary, room and board supplied by the University of the Caribbean, she lunged for it. 3 weeks later, a precariously thin young grad student whose adolescent acne had never cleared led Mary down the ladder that led into the apartment. It was a normal enough space with a bed, a stove, a refrigerator, but it was also filled up to Mary's waist with seawater. The bed was a hammock suspended from the ceiling. The couch was a piece of wood that drifted listlessly from room to room. Pete is pretty middle-of-the-road intelligence-wise, the grad student told her. He spent most of the tour making eye contact with her chest or with the ground, or at least what could be seen of the ground underneath the constantly churning water. A complicated filtration system had been put in place. But of all her specimens, he is the friendliest, so there's that. Mary liked Pete. She liked the way he would float next to her platform so she could pet him. She liked the chipper sounds he made when he was being fed. She liked playing fetch with him and the inflatable beach ball that had been provided. She did not like being constantly humped. Pete, Mary begged, please concentrate. shouted over her. It was less of a conversation than it was just two mammals screeching at each other. Mary pinched the bridge of her nose between her fingers and tried to master her own frustration. He was an animal, after all. She needed to be patient with him. Spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for a year alone with a bottlenose dolphin had seemed like a good idea at the onset. She liked animals, and she especially liked dolphins. Everyone likes dolphins. Mary had never thought of working with one, but then the opportunity had only just arisen. And now that the question had been asked, she was curious. Well, what did dolphins say, if it could speak? What a story to tell, and she was ready to date again. So she took the job. A variety of coaches had been chosen, from linguists to ESL teachers, animal behaviorists, to laymen like Mary. They would each live in solitude with a dolphin, uninterrupted, for a year, and attempt to build the linguistic bridge where once there had been none. For his lack of English, Pete was a clear communicator about one thing. Stop it! Mary batted him and his boner away from her leg, where a blooming blue bruise was taking shape beneath her wetsuit. She crawled onto the platform under her hammock and did the hard work of pulling the suit off. What the fuck, man, she said to no one, but also to Pete. It's just penis, penis, penis with you all the time. Penis. Pete chittered and dolphined and swam away. When the year was over, the other coaches would ask, how? How had she done it? None of the other coaches responded the way Pete had. And coaches had tried all manner of different tactics. Positive reinforcement, reparenting, forced meditation, deprivation, Pavlovian method, LSD, electroshock therapy, passive-aggressive compliments. What had Mary done so differently, they wanted to know. Pete's English vocabulary, though admittedly limited, would far surpass what any other dolphin could say. It was a miracle. Or something just south of a miracle. For all his strengths, Ben had been lousy in bed. Well, not lousy so much as boring. He learned early in their courtship that Mary liked having her ears kissed, her wrists held. And so he attended to these duties with the precision of an algorithm every single time. And after 3 years, all their sex had blurred into one monotonous memory for Mary. Kiss, fondle, hump. Kiss, fondle, hump. The regularity grated on her. In an effort to spice things up, Mary had bought a sex toy and introduced it brazenly in the act of coitus. What the dick? Ben shouted. He catapulted out of bed, clutching his balls. He was very handsome. Everyone told Mary so, but he wasn't handsome then. Too much? Mary asked. She thought the dildo would be a great addition. She'd even gone to the great lengths to make sure that it was smaller than Ben. A shopping feat that deserved its own accolades. But then they didn't have sex for several months after that. When they did resume, it was back to their regularly scheduled programming. Kiss, fondle, hump. Kiss, fondle, hump. The routine was what Ben liked, and the metronome of their relationship clicked on ahead. It hadn't been a happy union, but it was, for a time, predictable, and so manageable. It was with the memory of sex with Ben in her mind that Mary made her breakthrough with Pete. Males, it seemed, of any species could be easily handled if you're willing to roll up your sleeves, create, and then attend to a routine. Because one thing was for sure, Pete couldn't concentrate on learning when he had a boner. So Mary used hand jobs. When Pete approached her with his tumescent dolphin dick, Mary did what many bored girlfriends, wives, and efficiency-minded prostitutes had done before centuries before her. They gave Pete a good, firm-gripped old-fashioned. Pete quickly learned that communicating politely with Mary meant he got a nice handy, and with such great rewards, he soon proved to be the cooperative and willing student. It was not sexual to her, it was practical. Afterward, Pete could actually concentrate on his vowels. The bruises on her thighs began to recede. Her forearms grew thick and strong. A, Mary said. A, e, he responded. I, e, said Pete. Mary tossed him a mackerel. Within 3 months, Mary and Pete had established a daily rhythm. Eat, handjob, learn. Eat, handjob, learn. And it worked. Ticking along through the days, the weeks, and the months like an immaculately constructed clock. Her method worked, and well. She wondered how the other coaches were doing now and again, but there was no way to know. With only Pete to talk to, Mary had thought she might get lonely, but was pleased to find that she didn't. Pete was good company for a dolphin. And as the months added up to a year, Mary brimmed with satisfaction. She'd done it. It never occurred to Mary to be anything besides proud of her unprecedented success until she did her end-of-year debriefing with the scientist in charge, Dr. Lilly. Lilly was the kind of clean-cut, square-jawed East Coast white guy that had never been susceptible to Mary's charm. Her meeting with him had been brief and intense. "You mean to tell me you stimulated him sexually?" Lilly demanded. Behind him, a grad student unsuccessfully stifled a snicker. Considering that someone else had given a dolphin LSD, Mary was a little surprised to learn that her methods, which had proven to be the most successful, were considered the most inappropriate. "He wouldn't concentrate otherwise, sir." And Jesus Christ, she thought, it's not like I fucked him. Lilly gave her a look that she could read for what it was. "Slut. Tell no one," Lilly commanded. She'd be given no credit publicly, that much Lilly made absolutely clear. Her name would be struck from the records, no one would know about Mary, nor would they know about her metronome administration of handies. She'd be in no way associated with the University of the Caribbean, nor its test animals, nor any successes therein. But she'd be paid. "Fine," Mary said. "Fine." She collected her things from the apartment and gave Pete a hug goodbye. "Don't forget me." She gave him a kiss on his rubbery head. At least, she reminded herself, at least thanks to this year, thanks to her time with Pete, she knew exactly what a dolphin would say, even if no one knew her. But soon everyone else knew too. When the news got out that Lilly's lab had produced an English-speaking dolphin, Pete's vocabulary did all the talking. With the news cameras rolling and Lilly standing proudly next to the tank, Pete recited his vowels just as he was supposed to, much to everyone's delight. But then, unbidden, he rolled over, revealing his pink and erect phallus to the cameras. "No!" cried Lilly. He tried to coerce the reporters to stop, to turn off the cameras, but the cameras kept on rolling. And that night, on the national news, all of America heard the 4 words that Pete had spent the year mastering. "Mary! Please! Penis! Me!"
One more round of applause. Actually, can we get all of our readers up on stage? Everybody, I can't tell whether they're doing that, so I'm helpless. I'm like a deer in the instant before it expires. We're doing it. Meg Elison, Lauren Parker, Marsden, Maggie Tokuda-Hall, I'm Lewis Evans, I've been your host. I hope we'll all get to see you at next month's Cliterary Salon. We're finalizing the date, but that's going to be June. It's going to be Pride Month. It's going to be real gay. Meg leaned over, you couldn't hear that, and she was like, Meg leaned over and was like, "Tell them it'll be gay." But, spoiler alert, I was already going to tell you. It's going to be so fucking gay. It's going to be, this was pretty gay, this is nothing. This is nothing. You are basically watching a heterosexual marriage between wasps right now in the Marsden. I'm writing a lot of checks, and the best part is these fuckers have to cash them. So we really hope we'll see you in June. We're so proud that we're so pleased. Next month is proud. This month is pleased. We're so glad to have you all here tonight. Thank you so much. We love you. Good night. Stick around. The bar doesn't close.